What if I told you that the indigenous peoples of America could sleep in the open prairies and forests, full of dangers, with a serenity that is inaccessible to modern man? They live side by side with large predators, without steel bars and concrete walls, relying only on their knowledge of nature and ancient traditions. Their safety was built not on strength, but on cunning, harmony, and a deep understanding of the world around them. Watch the video to the end to learn how Native Americans managed to create invisible fortresses out of smoke, sounds, and the right placement in the camp. I will reveal the most closely guarded secret. The main defense of the Native Americans was not a physical barrier, but their own perception. They did not live in a state of constant fear of the wilderness, but considered themselves an integral part of it. This psychology was the first and most important barrier that allowed them to remain calm and alert. They did not fight nature, but lived in harmony with its rhythms, which gave them a unique advantage. Their worldview excluded panic, replacing it with careful observation and respect for the forces that surrounded them. This mental fortress was stronger than any stockade. They perceived the world around them as a single information system, where every sound had meaning. Safety began with the ability to listen and correctly interpret the sounds of the night. They did not sleep as modern city dwellers do, completely disconnecting from reality. Their sleep was sensitive but not restless. They were in a state of constant but relaxed alertness. The slightest deviation from the usual background noise of the night, the crack of a branch, unnatural silence, was instantly picked up by their consciousness. This ability was not innate, but was cultivated from an early age. The ability to distinguish between the thousands of sounds of the forest or prairie was as important a skill as walking or building a fire. They knew what sounds different forest dwellers made and how those sounds changed depending on the weather or time of day. This allowed them to instantly identify a potential threat from afar, long before it approached. Their ears were their primary early warning system. Moreover, they believed that the spirits of their ancestors and totems protected them in their sleep. This deep belief gave them a tremendous psychological advantage. They did not feel like lonely travelers in a hostile world, but rather members of a large community where both visible and invisible forces cared for them. This sense of security allowed them to rest deeply and recharge their batteries, while their subconscious remained on guard. They also used special practices to sharpen their hearing before going to sleep. These could be short meditations or simply moments of complete silence when all members of the camp listened to the night. They tuned their internal radar to their surroundings. It was a collective action that united the camp into a single living organism. Each person was responsible not only for themselves, but also for the safety of those sleeping nearby. It is important to understand that for them there was no such thing as absolute silence. Silence was filled with information. They learned to read silence just as they read sounds. An unnatural, dead calm was often a more alarming sign than the usual nighttime noises. It meant that something was nearby that had silenced the usual nighttime inhabitants. I'm very interested to hear your point of view. What do you think about this psychological approach to security compared to modern technologies? Write about it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Are you ready to learn the truth about how the most reliable security system in the world, which had neither cameras nor locks, worked? The security of Native American camps, especially on the Great Plains, was unthinkable without a well-organized night watch system. These were not random people. The most experienced, resilient, and vigilant warriors were chosen for this role. Their task was to stay awake while the tribe slept and to be the eyes and ears of the camp. This duty was considered one of the most honorable and responsible. The patrol system was multi-level and flexible. It depended on the size of the camp, the terrain, and the perceived level of threat. In a large Lakota or Cheyenne camp, it could be an entire network of posts. The guards were positioned around the perimeter of the camp, usually on small hills or at points with good visibility. They never sat in one place, but constantly and silently patrolled their assigned sector. The guards worked in pairs or small groups, but rarely stayed close to each other. They communicated using silent signals that they had been taught since childhood. These could be imitations of the voices of nocturnal forest dwellers or specific knocks made with two stones. This system allowed them to convey information about movement around the camp without causing panic or giving away their position. Each signal had a specific meaning. An important part of their job was not only to watch, but also to listen and smell. The sentries were positioned downwind so that they would be the first to catch any unfamiliar scent carried by the wind. They were trained to distinguish hundreds of smells, including the smell of smoke from a foreign fire or the specific smell emanating from large and dangerous forest dwellers. Their sense of smell was as keen as their eyesight. The sentries did not light fires at their posts so as not to attract attention. They wore dark clothing and could cover their faces with paint or dirt to blend in with the night landscape. Their task was to remain invisible and inaudible. They were living shadows guarding the sleep of their tribesmen. This required incredible endurance and discipline. The changing of the guard took place several times a night, usually at predetermined times related to the position of the stars in the sky. The changing procedure was quick and quiet. The old guard passed on to the new all the information gathered during their watch, where sounds were heard, which way the wind was blowing, whether anything unusual had been noticed. The continuity of information was key to safety. But what if I told you that the main threat came not from sound, but from smell? In the next chapter, we'll learn how Native Americans used smoke and herbs to create an invisible barrier that was more reliable than any wall. Ready to find out how it was possible to control the smells of an entire camp? What you have never seen is how an entire camp can become invisible to the sense of smell. We rarely think about how strong a smell a human settlement leaves behind. For Native Americans who lived in a world where smell was one of the most important senses, controlling odors was key to survival. The smell of cooking, smoke, and people themselves could attract unwanted visitors from far away. They did not try to eliminate the smell completely, which would have been impossible. Instead, they skillfully masked it using smoke. Smoke from a fire was a constant companion of any camp, but they did not use just any smoke, but smoke from certain types of wood, such as cedar, juniper, or wormwood. When burned, these plants produced thick, fragrant, and very persistent smoke. This smoke served several purposes at once. First, it permeated literally everything: clothing, dwellings, people's hair and skin. This resinous, natural smell was much less alarming to the inhabitants of the wild than the pungent smell of human sweat or blood. It made people part of the forest aroma rather than an alien element. Second, smoke itself is a powerful repellent. Many large predators instinctively avoid the strong smell of smoke, associating it with the danger of forest fires. The thick smoke from dozens of campfires created an invisible olfactory dome around the camp. This barrier was not physical, but often more effective than any fence. In addition, Native Americans actively used herbs not only for burning, but also for the body. They rubbed infusions and pastes from strong-smelling plants into their skin. This was not for perfume, but for practical hygiene. Plants such as wild mint, sage, and fir not only cleansed the skin, but also masked natural body odors. They also never left food waste near the camp. There were strict rules for disposal. All food scraps, bones, and entrails were either burned in a special fire or carried a long distance away from the camp, always downwind. This simple rule of hygiene was one of the main laws of safe overnight stays. Food supplies, especially dried meat or fish, were stored with particular care. They were never left in living teepees or wigwams. On the Great Plains, special high platforms were often built for this purpose, or bags were hung from trees at a safe distance from the ground. This was done not only to protect against uninvited guests, but also to keep supplies safe from rodents. If you like this unique fact about the life of Native Americans, don't forget to like this video. What large companies hide cannot be compared to how Native Americans use the planet's main resource: fire. For any night camp, fire was the heart, the center of life, and the main guarantor of safety. Its importance could hardly be overestimated. It provided not only warmth for the body in cooking, but also psychological comfort. The bright flames dispelled the primitive fear of darkness and served as a clear visual warning of any threat. However, Native Americans did not use fire in the way we might imagine. They rarely burned huge, roaring pioneer fires. Such a fire would be wasteful, require a lot of fuel, and be visible for miles, attracting unwanted attention not only from predators but also from enemy tribes. Their approach was much more subtle and effective. They preferred to maintain several small but hot fires, strategically placed around the perimeter of the camp or at the entrances to dwellings. This created a light and heat grid of security. Multiple light sources disoriented anyone who tried to sneak up on the camp in the dark. It was almost impossible to move between these fires without being noticed. Moreover, they were masters of the sleeping fire. At night, they did not extinguish the fire completely, but covered it with a thick layer of ash. Under this ash, the coals could smolder all night, giving off even heat and producing almost no smoke. This method allowed them to instantly fan the flames if necessary, and also created an invisible heat barrier that many nocturnal creatures preferred not to cross. The fire was always monitored. In each camp, or even in each family, a person was assigned to be on duty, responsible for maintaining the fire throughout the night. This person did not sleep or doze very lightly, periodically adding fuel and making sure that sparks did not fall on the dwellings. This fire guard was as important as the sentries on the perimeter. As we have already mentioned, the smoke from the fire played a huge role in masking odors, but the choice of fuel was also not accidental. Dry wood gave off heat and little smoke, which was ideal for cooking. But for the night barrier, they often threw in wet branches or special herbs that produced thick, acrid smoke to scare away uninvited guests. But even the best campfire won't save you if the camp is in the wrong place. In the next chapter, we'll learn how choosing the right location could replace an entire army of guards. Where do you think was the best place to set up camp in the wilderness? Choosing a place to spend the night was not a whim, but a precise science on which life depended. Native Americans never set up camp in the first beautiful place they came across. The decision was made after a thorough analysis of the terrain, and the most experienced members of the tribe were responsible for it. They looked for a place that would provide maximum security with minimum effort to defend it. First, they assessed natural barriers. The ideal location was one that was protected on at least one or two sides. This could be a steep riverbank, a sheer cliff, dense thickets of thorny bushes, or a canyon. Such barriers significantly reduced the front of a possible attack, allowing surveillance to be concentrated on open areas. The tribes of the Great Plains often set up their teepees in river bends. Water was not only a source of life, but also an excellent natural moat. Anyone who wanted to approach the camp would have to overcome the water barrier, which created noise and made them vulnerable. In addition, a camp by the water always had a guaranteed route of retreat. At the same time, they avoided settling too close to water or in lowlands. Spending the night in a lowland was dangerous for several reasons. First, cold and humid air accumulated there. Second, in case of heavy rain, the camp could simply be flooded. And third, from a defensive point of view, lowlands were always inferior to highlands. The ideal location was considered to be a small, flat hill with a good view of the surrounding area. This allowed the lookouts to see any approaching threats from a great distance. However, they avoided the highest points, such as hilltops, where the camp would be visible to everyone around and exposed to strong winds. They sought a happy medium. The Indians also carefully avoided trails. They knew that large forest dwellers had their own regular routes leading to watering holes or feeding grounds. Setting up camp on such a route would be a direct invitation to conflict. An experienced tracker could easily read the tracks to determine who and how often walked in the area and chose a place away from these busy highways. The time factor was crucial. For a short overnight stay, the requirements were the same. First and foremost, secrecy and safety. But for a long winter camp, which the tribe could occupy for several months, the location was chosen with particular care. Here, factors such as protection from winter winds, proximity to a non-freezing water source, and the availability of game in the area played a role. Want to know the secret that turned hundreds of separate dwellings into a single fortress? The layout of dwellings in a Native American camp was not chaotic. It obeyed strict social and practical laws that turned the settlement into a well-organized defensive system. Whether it was a nomadic Lakota camp or a stationary Iroquois village, there was a clear logic to everything. On the Great Plains, tribes such as the Cheyenne and Arapaho traditionally set up their camps in a huge circle. The circle, or hoka in the Lakota language, was a sacred shape symbolizing the unity of the tribe and the cyclical nature of life. But in addition to its sacred significance, it also had enormous practical importance. The circular arrangement of the tipis created a natural courtyard, or plaza. This central square was the heart of the camp. It was where councils, ceremonies, and community gatherings were held. But more importantly, it was the safest place at night. The most valuable horses were often herded into the center of the circle at night to protect them from horse thieves or nighttime threats. Children and elders were also protected within this inner space. The entrances to all tipis in a circular camp almost always faced east. This had deep spiritual significance, as they welcomed the rising sun. But it was also practical. Such a camp was protected from the prevailing westerly winds. From a security standpoint, this meant that all the doors faced the center, and the backs of the dwellings formed a solid outer wall. But how was protection provided inside the dwelling itself? In the next chapter, we will look inside a tipi and a longhouse and learn how their design ensured the safety of those sleeping inside. What do you think was the most important feature of the entrance to a dwelling? The dwelling itself, whether it was a portable plains tipi or a sturdy Iroquois longhouse, was the last and most important line of defense for personal safety. Its design had been refined over centuries and took everything into account, from climate to the need for rapid evacuation. Every detail was important and worked to protect the people sleeping inside. Consider the tipi, an ingenious invention of the nomads of the Great Plains. Its conical shape made it incredibly resistant to strong winds. But we are interested in its door system. The entrance to the tipi was always low, a small oval-shaped opening. To enter, one had to crouch or even kneel. This low entrance was no accident. First, it minimized heat loss in winter and prevented the wind from blowing inside. Second, it served as an excellent protective element. No one could break into the tipi quickly and quietly. Anyone entering, whether friend or foe, was forced to bend down, putting themselves in a vulnerable position and giving the owners time to react. The entrance itself was closed not with a wooden door, but with a special curtain, a door made of animal skin, often decorated. From the inside, it could be secured with wooden pegs. But more important was the second, inner curtain, or oza in Lakota. It was a lining of skins that ran around the entire inner perimeter of the tipi to a height of about 1.5 meters. This inner wall created an air gap that worked like a thermos, keeping it warm in winter and cool in summer. But from a safety perspective, it also closed all the gaps at the bottom. This made it impossible to enter the dwelling from below, under the edge of the tire, and protected sleepers from drafts and unwanted small creatures. The Iroquois had a different but equally well-thought-out system in their longhouses. The entrances to these giant structures were at the ends. They were also closed with heavy curtains made of skins or special wooden shields. Considering that many families lived in the house, the entrances were almost always guarded. The internal layout of the camp and dwellings was important, but no less significant was the order in which people were arranged for the night. Who slept where and how was not a personal choice, but part of a common system of collective security. The arrangement of sleeping places was subject to a strict hierarchy dictated by common sense and tradition. Inside the teepee on the Great Plains, each family member had their own permanent place. The most honorable and at the same time most responsible place was in the back of the dwelling, opposite the entrance. It was usually occupied by the head of the family, the most experienced warrior. From this place, he could see the entrance and anyone who looked in, while remaining in the most protected part of the dwelling. Young warriors, brothers or sons, slept closer to the entrance. It was not the most comfortable place. It was colder and draftier there, but it was the first line of defense. They were the shield protecting the rest of the family. In case of any alarm, they had to be the first to get up and face the danger, giving the others a few seconds to recover. Women and the youngest members of the family slept in the side rooms, which were the warmest and safest parts of the dwelling, between the head of the family and the warriors at the entrance. This arrangement ensured that they were as well protected as possible on all sides. The whole family instinctively formed a living protective cocoon around them. Although the vigilance of centuries and sensitive sleep were the basis of security, Native Americans also relied on simple but ingenious early warning systems. These were improvised alarms made from materials at hand. Their purpose was to make a loud and unexpected sound when someone tried to sneak into the camp. The simplest and most common method was to prepare the perimeter. The warriors did not simply rely on the natural landscape, but also refined it. In places where sentries could not conduct full surveillance, such as in dense thickets, dry, brittle branches were deliberately laid on the ground. Anyone who tried to walk there would inevitably make a loud crackling sound. This method was especially effective in wooded areas. The sentries knew exactly where they had left these sound traps. They themselves moved around the camp on quiet paths known to them. Any sound from the mined area was an immediate alarm signal. It was a simple but absolutely reliable system. Tribes living near rivers or lakes used water. They would tie empty, dried gourds or rattles made from turtle shells to bushes on the shore. These objects hung just above the water level. If someone tried to enter the camp from the river, they would inevitably create a wave or touch these alarms, causing a noise. Some tribes used so-called whispering ropes. These were thin wires strung with dry leaves, small bones, or feathers. Such ropes were stretched low above the ground in thick grass or between trees. Even a light touch caused a rustle and slight swaying that an experienced observer could notice. The same principle was used to guard the entrance to a dwelling. A bundle of dry claws, shells, or specially dried pips could be hung on the curtain covering the entrance to a tipi or wigwam. Any attempt to pull back the curtain from the outside would result in a distinctive knock or ringing sound. This sound was quiet enough not to wake the entire camp, but more than enough to wake those sleeping inside. All of the methods described, patrols, fires, site selection, and sound traps, would have been useless without the most important element, people trained to use them. Safety in the world of Native Americans was not a set of rules, but a way of life that was instilled from birth. This system of collective vigilance was their most reliable shield. Training began at an early age. The elders taught the younger ones to read nature, to distinguish tracks, understand the language of sounds, and predict the weather by the wind. These skills were not entertainment, they were the basis of survival. A child who grew up on the prairies learned to be observant not because they were forced to, but because it was as natural as breathing. Their games were often training exercises. Hide and seek taught them to be quiet and inconspicuous. Hunting games developed endurance and tracking skills. These skills, acquired in childhood, made them ideal scouts and trackers in adulthood. They learned to think like those who could pose a threat. This system of upbringing created a society where everyone was a security sensor. There was no division between security and civilians. Every member of the tribe, from the warrior to the woman who took care of supplies, was vigilant and responsible for the common good. If someone noticed something unusual, they immediately reported it. This collective mind was incredibly effective. Information about a potential threat spread through the camp instantly, often without a single loud word. A glance, a gesture, or a change in tone of voice was enough for everyone to understand that something was wrong. This nonverbal communication was honed to perfection. We can see that the peaceful sleep of Native Americans in the middle of the wilderness was no miracle. It was the result of a complex system honed over thousands of years. This system combined psychological resilience, a deep understanding of nature, strict social discipline, and a host of practical tricks, from controlling odors with smoke to strategically choosing a place to camp. Their security was not static but dynamic. It did not rely on dead walls, but lived in the vigilance of centuries, in the sensitive sleep of mothers, in the correct location of dwellings, and in the collective responsibility of each member of the tribe. They did not fight nature, but fit into it, using its own laws for their protection. What other topics from the life of the indigenous peoples of North America would you like to see in the next videos? Perhaps you are interested in their diet, hunting methods, or their amazing art. Share your ideas in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new exciting stories.